Hello, Margaret Kuhlman here of Soul Astrology. When I started looking at this new moon chart, I became rather overwhelmed by the realization that Mercury would be spending the next month and more going to and fro in Aries. So the background to anything else that's going on is this Mercury. He goes retrograde 3 times a year, each time for more or less 20 days. It's more than 20 days this time. And he'll be passing over the second half of Aries 3 times. So forwards, then backwards and forwards again. And he doesn't get to Taurus until well into May. So my first thoughts are about what it means to have Mercury, which is our communication, our thought processes, our conscious thinking, our movement around the place, in Aries, which is fast, impatient, get there, push, combative if opposed, but always with the drive to get where it's trying to go. It's ruled by Mars, raw energy, expresses suddenly, sometimes angrily, but without a deeper anger forcing forwards. It's more the frustration of the moment. When expressed, the anger's gone. It's as though there isn't time to harbour resentment, life to be lived, movement forwards. It's leaping out of Pisces, after all, out of the sea of human emotion, leaping out, which takes a lot of energy, and always perhaps the fear of falling back in. So that drives it, perhaps more than anything else. So the fact that this new moon is also in Aries would draw special emphasis to this Mercury in any case, but because it's going to be a total eclipse, seen only in part of the world, but any part affects the whole. So the complete eclipsing of our daylight, meaning the temporary darkness that the unconscious can throw over our source of light and life. They're calling it a supermoon because the moon is somewhat closer to the earth than it sometimes is, and therefore slightly larger. So it really will be covering the face of the sun. Often you get that aura around the edge when the moon is further away. So this really is a suggestion of total dark. And the moon, the unconscious, our own personal unconscious, but the unconsciousness of humanity, the assumptions that we have made, which of course you never know you're making, you assume they're true. And this is not all. At the precise same minute of a degree is Chiron, the wounded healer. Kaipacha is referring to him as the wounded warrior. I'm sure he taught healing, but he also taught warfare. He taught the handling of weapons to the heroes of Greece, as well as healing herbs. And of course, the battlefield is where you're going to need those healing herbs. So here he is, in the midst of war, brought on by the unconscious drives of humanity to survive, and yet bringing the balm to heal those wounds. And Mercury, the consciousness, retrograding through all the ills, the damage we may have caused or been caused to us in the past, not having to dig them up, just there they are in our face, and Chiron healing the wounds. And the moon, the unconscious, contains also the mother love that enabled us to survive babyhood. the beautiful moon face of the mother, her gentle caring, nurture, and the drive that keeps us facing the spirit, the true source of light and life in the world, in all things. In a way, one can say that the moon is innocent. It reflects all that we see in the light of the sun. And it's only that aspect of us which is afraid of not surviving, which is to say, doesn't believe in spirit, that actually creates all the wounding in the first place. So this time is an opportunity for allowing what rises in our unconscious, allowing and soothing, recognizing that what we brought with us, we brought, and it's there. Who we are is who we are. Our personality is what it is, but it doesn't have to be the driving force. So we see what we need to heal, and we go forwards healing others. At the new moon, you'll notice in the chart, in the 12th section, which is Pisces, Mars is almost on Saturn. And perhaps these few days leading in towards the new moon, you will have felt a sense of tiredness. The pressure of the emotional field is enormous. Saturn, one could say, is endeavouring to teach us how to be part of the human race. And Mars is it's solar plexus in the body. It's sort of our motive force. It's our openness in Pisces. We are open to the motives of any aspect of humanity, along with the belief systems, and I have to say the attitudes. And that's the thing I have emphasised in the new moon letter I've been writing. The actual area that needs to be worked is our attitudes, which are, I think, our emotional judgments. Because we are in charge of them, we can choose. And we often maintain attitudes that are well below what we actually know and believe. Those attitudes are part of the unconscious realm often. And we have to be prepared to let go of all kinds of things which rise with them when they surface. When we find our attitudes, we often feel quite ashamed of them. Wouldn't want to own up particularly. And that sense of shame is there in our being, so that when we shift the attitude, it's amazing how refreshing it can feel. And a new sense of self-respect can be allowed to grow. This is what the whole of humanity needs. This is the maturing of the human race, if we can do it. But of course it doesn't start with everybody doing it at once. So let it begin with me. The steady quality of Saturn as Mars goes across, it can easily be a sense of determination that to raise the level of light in the world, to raise my capacity to express spirit, can be a commitment for this month, this year, throughout these changes, for the rest of my life. Mars continues on. When we look at the full moon chart, we find that Mars has continued and is approaching Neptune. So the second half of this month, we have the added influence of Neptune himself, the energy of dissolution, of all things merging, or as I like to think of, the energy of light and love. Mars energizes what it touches. And through Pisces, it's touching that which aims for oneness within all humanity. There is a sextile, which will just have happened before the full moon, but will continue influence for the rest of the month. Sextile to Uranus and Jupiter. Now the full moon's on the 24th of April. On the 20th of April, so just a few days before, Jupiter will have reached Uranus, which is the other biggie this month. Jupiter definitely expands everything it touches, expands and grows. And Uranus is about the changes that are happening in the practical, physical world, the feeling, the need that we are likely to be feeling, and feeling for some time, the need for freedom. We don't feel the need for freedom when we're free. We feel it when we are trapped or feel restricted. Uranus has been exposing for the last several years where we tend to feel trapped. Jupiter emphasizes that. It's a big push for freedom, followed by Mars over Neptune at the end of Pisces. It looks to me like the capacity to see or to feel, to resonate with a much bigger truth than normal. The connecting of all things, everything being affected. Now, of course, the planets don't do this to us. They affect more how we feel on the inside, one might say. This feels like perhaps any individual, all those individuals who are particularly susceptible or open to the emotional field, all feeling a need for freedom. But also in this full moon chart, the Sun has reached Taurus. So what we're feeling about could be the Earth itself. Opposite to the Sun is the Moon in Scorpio. Deep feelings about what we see, what we have seen, what we're recognizing. Pluto holds the point at right angles to them both, and sextiles Neptune. Mars will go into Aries shortly after connecting with Neptune. So we're looking at perhaps a galvanizing of the realization that something must be done. At this stage, it's difficult, if not impossible, to know quite what that something is that we'll be focused on. There may be many opinions as to what that ought to be. Circumstances might dictate what it actually is. Mercury will have retrograded at that point as far back as he's going to go, onto the North Node. So our drive for action could well be precisely what we're supposed to be doing. And yet, until Mars is in Aries, we're likely to be uncertain of what exactly to do. Maybe the Earth herself or the sea will have something to say to us that we cannot ignore. Venus goes into Taurus on the 30th of April to join the Sun, Uranus and Jupiter. And the very next day Mars goes into Aries. So the 1st of May has Mars in Aries, and action is liable to take place from then on. Mercury's going forward by then, covering that area that we've been discovering in ourselves and our lives that needs to be cleaned up, and going forward it for the last time, actually doing the cleaning up. This could be a resetting of our attitudes, and the Earth herself may well be the driving force. and we don't know what's going to happen. I think this month, keep checking your own attitudes, and you'll find them by watching where you feel particularly emotional about something or somebody which you discover has a judgment at back of it. The judgment, the emotion about the judgment, and the attitude that follows. This is where we need to work. Just notice. And May looks like a month of action. We'll see. A thought that struck me the other day was that it's where we are tense that we hurt. If you fall in a relaxed way, you generally roll. The momentum takes you and you don't hurt yourself. If you fall and you're tense, you try to catch yourself or prevent the falling, then that's where bones get broken. So it's something about where you feel life is throwing stuff at you. Relax and let it go through. It arrives, goes through and out, and then you can look at what happened. But resisting life doesn't generally work. Many blessings, and may the angelic realms be very close. Thank you. Mother Nature turns, rolls over in her pearly sheets. I have been still too long, and life is growing around me, threatening its own survival. All change, dear ones. I'll try not to squash you, but turn I must.